Started recording. You may unmute at your pleasure.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'll now call the regular council meeting of January 18th to order. I need someone to move that the ministerial order M192 of the regular council meeting of January 18th, 2021 to be held virtually and is not able to be open to the public due to technical limitations at this time. And that in order to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability in respect of the meeting, a recording of this meeting will be made available to view publicly within 3 days of this meeting being held. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Call the question. Those in favor? All carried. Thank you. Item 2.1. The meeting is open to statements from no more than 5 members of the public of no more than 2 minutes in length each. Is there any one listed for public input? Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Mayor, there were no statements submitted.
Okay. Item 3.1, require resolution. Are there any late additions or deletions of the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor, no additions.
Okay. I require that someone move that the January 18th, 2021 regular council meeting agenda be adopted. Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Leach. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Delegation, item 4.1, our favorite time of the year, BC assessment update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have Tracy Shimko joining us from BC Assessment. The assessments weren't as crazy this year as they were last year, so I don't believe there's been as much interest, but I will let Tracy explain the process this year.
Hi there, thanks for having me. I'm just gonna share my screen here, so bear with me here. My computer, there we go. And let's see here. Share screen. Share. So let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So we will start from the beginning here. So I'm back. I think I met most of you last year. And this presentation is going to go over just a bit of information about BC assessment. So my name is Tracy Shimko, and I am the acting assessor for the Thompson Okanagan region. Our region includes all the way up north to Clearwater. We go just past Lillooet to Joffre Lakes. And then southwest, we're just past Lytton. And then in the Okanagan, we are, our border is with the Kootenay-Columbia region at Midway, and then we also do all of Kelowna, Vernon, Lumby, and all of that area. So I'm happy to be here and to talk about assessments for the Lillooet area. And hopefully you have questions, and I can provide you with some answers, or and this presentation provides you with a lot of the questions that you might have. So the topics that I'm going to discuss are about BC assessment, valuation, classification, assessment cycle and key dates, the relationship between assessments and taxes, the 2021 assessment role overview for Lillooet and for the province, the appeals process, and collaborating with BC assessment. So who are we, what do we do, and how do we do it? Well, we were established in 1974 under the Assessment Authority Act, and we are a Crown corporation. we do operate independent of any taxing functions and any politics. We do fall under the Ministry of Finance. That was recently switched when the government through the new election. We provide uniform and fair property assessments throughout British Columbia, and in 1975 there were 879,000 properties assessed, and in 2021 there's over 2.1 million properties assessed. So the assessment role is an annual list of property values identifying ownership, value, classification, and exemptions for each property. This represents over 2 million properties with a total value of over $2 trillion. Doing the assessment role does provide stability and predictability for taxing authorities, and it raises over $8 billion annually in property taxes for local services and schools. How we value properties is primarily market value. So market value is the most probable price which a property would sell for in a competitive market under conditions that are requisite for a fair sale, and the buyer and seller are each acting prudently, knowledgeably, and assume the price is not affected by undue stimulus. This is an important concept for market value approach for assessments. This is internationally recognized as a fair way to assess properties and to distribute taxes. We also have legislated values in our on our assessment role. Those are things like railways, major industrial properties, where there are machinery and equipment, where farm regulations, farm rates, where they are a legislated value that we apply to properties. Oops. It's not moving. So the factors that affect market value are location, land use controls, land characteristics, building characteristics, and income potential. Land use controls are the biggest influence that municipalities have on assessments. And the assessments are done based on a highest and best use approach. What that means is we look at the property's physical possibility, the legal permissibility. So again, that's where municipalities come into play, what's legally allowed on the property based on zoning, financial feasibility, and maximally productive. So typically, we look at a property and we go through these 4 steps to determine what is the most maximally productive use of the property. Land use affects market value in many ways. So the local governments, when they do development plans, OC pleas, they provide a long-term vision for land use. And then once rezoning happens, that then goes back to the highest and best use analysis, and we determine whether a change in zoning might change the use of a property and therefore the value of a property. Redevelopment also puts a lot of, also can change market value, and then market demand, and then ultimately that makes your assessment at the end. Properties are classified in 9 different classes. These are legislated, and we follow the classification regulation. So we have residential class, which is all single-family dwellings, mobile homes, apartments, care homes, strata condominiums, those sorts of things. The utilities, supportive housing, which is a fairly new class, it's class 3. And it does have a requirement that you apply, and then it is the Governor General tells us which properties qualify. Major industrial, light industrial, business and other, managed forest, rec and nonprofit, and farmland. With business and other, if a property's use doesn't fall in any of the 8 categories, it automatically goes to class 6, business and other. The assessment cycle, we have some key dates. So before January 1st of 2021, in November and December of 2020, we do what's called a pre-roll. And pre-roll is really important for property owners in that we offer a look at a draft copy of the assessment. And for property owners that experience an increase in value over what would be typical, we send them an early notification letter that says you have a property, either a property value change or a classification change that could impact how much you're taxed in a given year. Then when January 1st hits, assessment notices hit the mail and we're in inquiry period. And that's where property owners can call into BC Assessment and question an appraiser on the value of their assessment. And through January 1st, property owners can also appeal their assessment. The deadline is February 1st. And then once they've appealed their assessment, we're into the PARP appeal hearings. And this is from February 1st to March 31st. At the end of the PARP appeal hearings, we produce a revised roll. The revised roll reflects all the changes that are made through the PARP appeal process. April 1st to September 30th is when we're collecting data. We're trying to complete any projects that we have, and we're getting as much new things on the roll that we can. And April 30th is the second level of appeal deadline, and that's the Property Assessment Appeal Board. The Property Assessment Appeal Board does have a fee of $30, and it is, again, the second level of appeal if you're unhappy with the results of the PARP hearing. And then July 1st is the valuation date. October 1st to December 31st is very important for us. That's when we're in the throes of roll production. So that's where we have our physical condition and permitted use deadline of October 31st. And then all of our ownerships reflect LTSA records November 30th. December 31st, assessment notices are in the mail, and that's where equaling liability for taxation. So the November 30th is a big date for us as well. So if things don't come to us before the completed roll from LTSA, if it is date stamped or the ownership transfer does happen before November 30th, we do process it through the PARP process, and that's reflected on the revised roll. So taxes and assessments are very closely related. So your assessed value multiplied by the property tax rate divided by 1,000 is how much you owe on July 1st of each year, unless the taxing authority has enacted a different date. We get a lot of questions about whether the change in assessment is the same as the change in their taxes. And that's not necessarily the case. Typically, if your property value changes at the average rate that class of property changes, you likely won't see any change in your taxes. If your property changes by a lower percentage than the average change in that property class, you may see a decrease in your taxes. And if your property changes more than the average change for a property class, you'll probably see an increase in your taxes. And that's why we do send those early notification letters. It's for those folks that have the average change greater than what's typical for their property class. So the 2021 assessment roll overview. For Lillooet, for the province, we saw an increase in the total roll of 1.1%. So there are 2,114,855 properties in the province. We had an increase in roll value of 3.9%, which is a total of $2.01 trillion. And an 18.6% decrease in non-market change provincially. So this year we collected $22.6 billion in non-market change, which was almost 20% less than what we collected last year. And that's primarily because of the COVID impacts. So we had many municipal offices closed for a period of time, building permits, and new construction was slow to get to BC Assessment. And so for a lot of municipalities, we actually just didn't get data, or the data was is still behind, and we're still getting construction from 2020. For Lillooet, it's actually a brighter story for the non-market change. You had a 0.9% increase from 2020. So we collected $3,144,550 million worth of non-market change for Lillooet. You have a total roll value of $464,637,080, and that's 4.34% increase from 2020. And there are 1,446 properties in Lillooet, which is a 0.4% increase. Typically, properties increase because of subdivisions, and then you'll see that number slowly creep up, but it's usually not a huge change. For the 2020 roll, I've separated out percentages just because this year was a little bit unusual compared to a typical year. So for residential, single family, and mobile homes, we saw a -5 to a +10% change from year over year. The -5 to 0% to -5% are mostly the mobile homes, and the single family residential is mostly in that 0 to 10% change range. We have some strata residential properties in Lillooet. The average change is -5 to +5%, but there are 6 strata residential properties that have had a perpetual remediation adjustment that has been removed this year. So those properties increased by 36%. We've got commercial properties that are going anywhere between -5 to +5%. Industrial was 0 to 10% change. Rental apartments are -5 to 5% change. And accommodations, which are motels and hotels, are -5% to 5% change. The appeal process. So as I mentioned before, we do a pre-roll in November and December prior to the January 1st inquiry period. This is where owners can phone in and contact us if they have any questions. And if they're unsatisfied after they've phoned us, they can appeal their property by February 1st. It does have to be written. So we do have an online form that people can fill out, which is quite easy for them to do, or they can mail it in or drop it off at one of our office locations. February 2nd to March 15th is when the PARP hearings occur. And the Property Assessment Review Panel, the panel members are actually appointed by the government. So BC Assessment has no control over who the members are. And this year is actually a quite unusual year. So given the COVID restrictions, it's all going to be done by telephone hearing, which is good for smaller communities where people don't have to travel in winter conditions to get to a location. And then April 30th is the deadline for the second level of appeal, and that's the Property Assessment Appeal Board. And again, those members of that board are also appointed by the government. BC Assessment has no control over who the members are. And the PAB is part of what we provide to municipalities, where every year we go through the properties that are under appeal for PAB, and we report any risk to the roll and give municipalities an estimate of what that risk might be. So the percentage of folios appealed. So as we talked about this before, you can see that Lillooet is slightly higher than the provincial average, but last year was particularly high because of the increase. So we had a 4.5% appeal rate last year. But the good news is that the impact of those appeals on the actual revised roll was still less than 1% change. So this is just a 5-year rolling average of where the completed to the revised roll is. And as you can see, it has been fairly consistently under 1% over the last 5 years. Collaboration. So this is a really important thing for BC Assessment. We do need to collaborate so that we can ensure that we have fair and equitable property assessments, that we maintain a stable and predictable assessment roll. We can optimize tax revenue levied and collected by taxing authorities, and we can increase the citizens' awareness of property assessment and taxation, which I think is a very important thing, so that that citizens know how their assessment was done and why they pay what they pay for their taxes. This year, we did develop a system called Citrix ShareFile. It allows municipalities to upload their building permits, and then we can get that information, and it is all electronic. It really does help us collect a lot of that data. So we do really recommend that municipalities embrace the Citrix ShareFile, especially in these times where data sharing is essential for all of us when we're working from home. And in addition to building plans, land use control amendments, development per applications and approvals, extensions of service infrastructure and permissives and revitalization tax exemptions, occupiers of lessees of civic properties, situs changes, mailing address changes, those can all be uploaded to the Citrix share file as well. BC Assessment has an excellent website. I would recommend that anybody go onto the website. It really does provide quite a bit of information. We have an assessment, find your property assessment. It will provide the assessment of your property, and you can look to see your neighboring properties assessments to make sure that they are equitable. And you can also look for sales in your area to see what sold and what kind of information we have on your property. The interesting thing about Lillooet this year is that in the last 5 years, we actually had the most sales for residential properties to set the roll. So the average for the last 5 years has been around 26 sales in a given year for single family residential. And this year we had 35 sales. So that was a good news story. And that is all. And if anybody has any questions, I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Tracy. Nicely done. Well done. Interestingly enough, 35 sales on an inflated, let's put it this way, real estate prices. I guess doesn't help individuals, but whether it will help us, the District of Lillooet, I'm not sure at this particular point. But did you say just before I turn it over to council, did you say that the strata residential, a few of them, because they've been red circled, are going up 36% this year?
That's correct. There are 6 strata residential properties that had a remediation adjustment, and it has been determined that the remediation is now complete and they are going up 36%.
Okay, I think that's good to know. Thank you. Council, any questions, comments? Good. Good presentation, Tracy. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'd be happy to take a phone call or email, whatever you like.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Excellent. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There be no public or statutory hearings. We'll move on to 6, adoption of the minutes. Need someone to move that the December 7th, 2020 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second. Councillor Leach. Any error? No, yeah, any errors or omissions noted there? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. No business arising from the minutes. Horizon report, none. Correspondence and petitions. Any councillor? We've got 14 pieces of correspondence. Any councillor want to remove one or more? Councillor Howe?
Yes, I'd like to remove number 5 and number 7.
5 and 7. Okay, Councillor Wiebe?
I'd like to remove 8 and 10.
10. Any others? Okay, I need someone to move that items number 5, 7, 8, and 10 be removed from the correspondence report and in discussion under section 18, 1, 2, 3, and 4. New business at our January 18 regular council. Who will so move? Councillor Leach, second. Councillor Wiebe. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Okay. Now I need a resolution. The correspondence included in the staff report dated January 12th be received for information -5, 7, 8, and 10. Who will move? Councillor Leach, second Councillor Hoppel. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. No. There be no reports from committees of council. Item 11, reports and presentations of staff. 11.1, 2021 acting mayor designations. Mr. Deniger?
Mr. Deniger, please unmute your microphone.
And that's right, the corporate officer, which is what I was saying, is this is typically a corporate officer task, so I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is one of those items in the procedure bylaw that needs to happen every year. Probably should have done it in December, but I forgot. So here we are at the first meeting in January, signing the acting mayor designations for 2021 in the case that you are unavailable to attend a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's just say council wanted to see our CAO delegate some of the authority, so we saw it firsthand. Thank you. Okay, I need someone to move that the schedule of 2021 acting mayor designations be approved. Who will move? Councillor Weed, second. Councillor Howe. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Item 12, 12.1, associate member liability insurance for consultants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for our contracted approving officer, Ian McIntosh. Staff are already covered under the MIABC's insurance, but for our contractors, we do need to add them as an associate member to that policy. The cost for that is $2,000 per year, and that is already budgeted, or there is sufficient budget in the 5-year financial plan for that already. So staff are recommending that council make this resolution so that MIA can extend their insurance over Mr. McIntosh as approving officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Need someone to move that Ian McIntosh, approving officer, be added as an associate member to the District of Lillooet's liability insurance policy with the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, MIABC, for the term of his consulting agreement being January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021, or until such time as the agreement is terminated. Who will move? Councillor Weeb, second. Councillor Leach. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Against? Councillor Howe, were you in favor or against? Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, I'm in favor. Do you not have a visual on me? My camera is on.
No, I do have a visual. I guess it's just your photo is a bit slow, and I'm talking a bit too fast, so I will slow down. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to work in progress. Work in progress as of January 13. Any questions, comments, clarification from council? Okay, there being none, I need someone to move that the work in progress of January 13, 2021 be received for information. Councillor Hopful, second. Councillor Leach. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. No notice of motion. Report from the mayor. I just have one, not a lot going on with COVID the way it is, and the whole area being under watch or scrutiny. I have one Zoom meeting, which was for the Indigenous Court session on January 14th. Otherwise, it's been fairly quiet. That's it for me. Councillor Huffle?
Hi. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet for me too. It's weird because I've had a lot of conversations and discussions with with different people over the last month. But as for meetings, I had January 13th, a historical meeting. And basically, it's an ongoing discussion of what we're doing this year with the museum and the visitor center. I don't remember if I said at my last meeting, but I'll just say it again, that the visitor center, Destination BC, awarded the $12,500 to the visitor center, which will be done at the museum. So that will be opening and carrying on as we were last year, which was people would come to the door, knock, and it would carry on like that. The museum, we are in talks of obviously not opening it this year, but taking this year to revamp, redesign, reinvent, just change a few things. So that'll be ongoing discussions. We're thinking about having another Zoom meeting just to go over some goals and objectives of what we all want, because it is a new committee. So lots going on there. On the 14th of January, I had a NEDIC meeting. I'm starting to understand or have a better understanding as Barb's or Councillor Weeb's alternate. She's helping me along, and yeah, it's a work in progress. And yeah, I'm really happy that there's lots of conversation around it during this COVID year, that there's lots of conversation around what people want to see in their community with regards to the OCP. That's really important. And again, really happy that there's lots of interest. But that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hoffel. Councillor Howe?
Hello. Nothing new to report here. It's been a very slow season indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Howe, but you're not alone. Councillor Leach?
Yeah, I'm mostly just gearing up for this upcoming 2 weeks of meetings because we're going to be busy. But I did attend the January 12th SWIMS board meeting, as mentioned in the committee of the whole earlier. And yeah, I'm really proud of where they've come. So to have their proposal come to the next council meeting, I'm very thankful that motion passed, I guess. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that I came across a webinar, and I did forward it on to Mr. Denegar to distribute if he wishes to do so. But on January 27th from 8 to 9 p.m. there is a Zoom webinar. It's called Working in a Good Way, and it's just a couple of people who have built mountain bike trails on Turtle Island, working with the Indigenous community there. And so I thought it might just be, if there's the public or staff or anybody that's interested, as that seems to be something that there are folks that are interested in this area. They basically go through, from what I understand, they're going to be talking about the struggles and the successes of how they've gotten to where they've gotten. So yeah, that is January 27th, happening, I guess, from our computers. That's all I've got. So.
Mr. Mayor, if you could please unmute your microphone.
No, I was just talking to myself. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Leach. I got a sorry. Why didn't you warn me in beginning? Now I forgot what the heck I was going to say. It was so good too. No, thank you, Councillor Leach, and I agree with you. The SWIMS presentation is a pretty skookum one. They worked very hard, and I know council is supportive of that. So well done. Councillor Weeb.
That was a really nice intro. Thanks. I've also been sitting in on a daily basis for the month of January with the First Nations Health Authority and the COVID results and so on and so forth. Sid Scotchman did some pictures and a nice video last week when they started doing their COVID shots. So if anybody wants to check it out on YouTube, it's pretty good, three series. My husband got his shot today, being a Bridge River employee, so I'll let you know if he has a fever or anything like that. I may or may not take care of him. On January 12th, I had a meeting with Mr. Deniger, Vera Bussey with the Historical Society, and I was the representative for the Miyazaki House Society, and we've all kind of agreed that we're going to hit the pause button on working under one umbrella for now, at least until late 21 or 22. Due to the COVID, I don't think anybody's going to be moving forward anytime quickly. And thank you, Councillor Hopful, for the wonderful reviews of being my alternate on the NEDIC committee. I'm sure between the two of us, we will figure out what's actually been going on for a year and a bit. And that brings us up to today.
Thank you, Councillor Weed. Item 17.1, the CAO report.
Well, good evening. Thank you. I've got 5 items. The first one being Happy New Year. Number 2, sincere thanks to Mayor and Council for the absolutely fantastic strategic planning session in late December. It was very inspiring for staff. It was very valuable for all of us in senior management to hear your deepest thoughts brutally and honestly told to us. And I do look forward to finalizing our municipal objectives next week. Just so you know, the staff have been busy developing the operating and capital budgets for this year in the 5-year financial plan. We've got a draft budget ready, thanks much to Joni LaRue, but it is kind of dynamic based on the municipal objectives. So the timing and the details of that budget will very much depend on what happens next week. What council decides its priorities are could have an impact on the budget, which will change the timing. But we should have a tentative meeting schedule for the budget process by the end of next week. Signage, I know we talked about this, it feels like forever ago, but we worked with TCLIT to get updated signage down by the old bridge on their traditional fishing grounds. And that signage has been approved and installed. It looks fantastic. I will send photos out to council, but feel free to go down there and check it out too. It looks great. And finally, you may have read it in the newspaper, but we do have our first active block in the Lillooet Block Watch program. Kudos to everybody who stepped up to volunteer for that. I know Bruce Loans is continuing to work with volunteers. I just want to get a shout out to everyone to please consider volunteering for this program. All you have to do is call Municipal Hall or drop by or shoot an email to blockwatch@lillooet.ca. Doesn't cost anything, but a little bit of time makes your community safer. And that's my report for today.
Thank you, Mr. Deniger. We'll move to item 18, new business. 18.1, bear with me here. I believe it's number 5, the letter to BCUC re BC Hydro street lighting rates. Councillor Howe.
Great, thank you. So reading through the comments there, I found that I have the same concerns for our community. I was unaware that BC Hydro was increasing their rates to governments and municipalities, and that they were charging us for the disposal of existing lights and associated depreciation costs. So that was a bit of a shocker. That leads me to my suggestion. In light of the crime rates going up, and the feedback from RCMP in mitigating that crime rate is ample light, and being that we have a mix of both districtly owned and hydro-owned street lamps in the district, I would like to see an inventory taken of our streetlights to find out which ones are and aren't working. Also through that inventory, finding out which ones are hydro that are not working and holding them accountable to the maintenance they need to provide. So I'm not too sure. I'd like to hear a little bit more from Mr. Denegar, if I may, in terms of plans around. I've heard that there might be some thoughts already in the air regarding addressing these issues. Is that true?
Yes, if I may. Yes, this was a topic of concern and discussion by senior staff. Just this afternoon, I was actually speaking with Mr. Card about the municipal objectives that staff, the council drafted in December, and staff are fine tuning for discussions next week. We've actually taken the whole lighting issue. I think we've split it into 3 different objectives about the inventorying, about the costs, looking at it from the perspective of just good lighting for safe neighborhoods, and as well as the inventorying. So Rory's busy working on fine tuning those objectives for council to look at next week. So yes, all those things are top of mind and will be brought back to council for discussion to make sure that we all agree on what things we need to approach this year. On the specific issue of the letter in the correspondence, again, staff saw that and had some choice words for BC Hydro. So we have officially, as the District of Lillooet, submitted the paperwork required to be an intervener in the public process. And I believe there's some neighboring communities as well that are working with us on that. Because if the idea of it is to reduce costs, then why is it increasing costs on the small rural communities? It doesn't make much sense. If they're going to save money, then they can save money. So should we. So I'll let Rory say anything else if he's got something to add to that. If he's on the line right now. I don't think he is. Oh, no,
yeah, just to add that hello everyone. Just to add to that, there will be a report coming to next council meeting where I'm going to outline the steps that were taken up to this point as far as the streetlight upgrades, all the information we've been given. Again, as Jeremy said, we've only recently registered as an intervener or we're given the option to, but we've also been in contact with other surrounding communities who are doing the same. So everyone's kind of on the same page here.
Councillor Leach.
Yeah, I just want to also say, first of all, thank you. I think it's a really smart decision on the behalf of senior staff's decision on this, but also just to make staff aware that because the citizens of the community, if they see a street light out, they are told to phone it in to BC Hydro to have it changed. And I know of a couple people who have continually phoned in areas where the streetlight has been out or malfunctioning for the past 3 years, and BC Hydro is not even remotely looking at it. So they're not keeping their end of the bargain up either. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Councillor Howe, you're next.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Intervener. Sorry, that's a new term to me. What does that mean exactly?
So it's basically like our commitment that we're opposing this rate. So we wish to intervene in the final decision that's made as far as the BC Utility Company to make their final decision on rate. This is their giving us an opportunity to speak our piece, so to speak, before they make any final decisions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Huffle.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'll slow down. Councillor Howe, sorry. Councillor Huffle.
Hello. So through the mayor, I was just going to ask, like with Main Street being the Ministry of Transportation, are they involved in this talks back and forth to BC Hydro?
Yes, yeah, and I've been speaking to Brad about that as well. And BC Hydro, most of the lighting on Main Street is owned by BC Hydro, but there are some poles that are owned by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure as well, especially the things like crosswalks is a good example of that. But again, we've been talking to BC Hydro, we've been talking to the local guys as well, and wanting to use their best practices. But again, this is information that I'll bring to council in a report.
So in that report, is that going to include where the lighting is for the crosswalks?
Where the lighting is, sorry?
Well, where we are with the lighting right now, I mean, it's still that yellow soft glow, and God knows when it's raining, I cannot see anybody. So we really do. I'm pretty a strong advocate for proper LED lighting. We need it.
Yeah, well, they're included in that LED lighting upgrade as well. And I should mention that I've also been speaking to Brad from Ministry of Transport on a side note about they are going to send a team here to reevaluate our crosswalks, and so they have warrants. So there is people coming in to evaluate this year.
Okay, I'm just really impatient with that one. I just really think as a mayor and council, we really need to, I mean, if somebody else gets hurt, I'm going to feel awful that we haven't taken a more, I don't know, stronger approach to this. Is just something that is, to me, ridiculous. You know, I know you guys are doing your best, but I just think that we need to do something a little bit more forceful before somebody else gets hurt. They're so dark. I mean, it's so dark. I don't see that in any other community. But thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else comments on this item? Councillor Howe, are you okay with what you heard from staff, or do you want to see some different action on this piece of correspondence?
No, that's fine. If we have an action list coming to us in terms of options and ideas that we can action out quite quickly, as well as accompanying information, I think that's a great start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howe. Mr. Taylor, we still have to do a resolution to accept the correspondence. Can we wait for all four pieces to do them at one time in case there are no extra addendums to do, or do I have to take each one?
It's up to you, Mr. Mayor, but I would suggest grouping them all together.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Item 18.2, it'll be the Silga Community Excellent Awards 2021. I can't recall whether it was Councillor Howe or Councillor Wiebe. Could you help me with this, please? Councillor Howe, thank you.
Hello. Okay, so the Silga Community Excellence Awards of 2021. I think that our team has worked so hard, and we've achieved so much that I think is worthy of submitting or suggesting submitting. However, I do think that one of the most compelling that has been completed that we could really bring to the forefront would be how we've worked is our efforts working with Tourism Lillooet and the Chamber of Commerce on economic stability and growth through Suzanne Denbeck. So I would like to motion that staff submit an application for Community of Excellence Awards for economic growth.
Mr. Mayor, you are muted again if you were speaking.
Okay, sorry, apologies, folks. So then, Councillor Howe, you're moving that staff be directed to apply for the Silga Community Excellence Award for 2021 for economic development. Is that correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, and do I have a seconder? Seconder, no. Seconder is Councillor Hopful. Any discussions, further discussions, guys? No discussion, call a question. Those in favor? Okay, those against? Okay, it's carried. We still have Mr. Taylor, we still have the correspondence at the end of this process to create an acceptance resolution, correct?
Yes, we'll just accept them all for information together. Any ancillary resolutions can be made as they happen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. Okay, item 18.3 in a new business, Silga call for resolutions.
I wanted to ask a question first before I go into that. Because I'm on the Silga board, I wasn't sure if I could second Jamie's, Councillor Howe's nomination. Could either Mr. Taylor or Mr. Deniker answer that for me, so I know in the future?
I don't believe that would be an issue as long as it doesn't have any financial stake in it. It is just a nomination. That was just a resolution to write a letter, so I think you would have been fine for that one.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward on this call for resolutions for convention, as far as I know, we are going to be, well, we're going to have another meeting for sure, but the Silga board is going to be doing a virtual somewhere near the end of April. It's not all confirmed yet, but if anybody has any resolutions they want brought forward there that may move on to UBCM, they need to be in by February 26th. I just wanted to reinforce that one, because lots of times we just look at this correspondence and move on.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Leach.
Yeah, I just as Councillor Wade was talking, I'm wondering if, like, obviously we can take this in as information, but maybe at the next council meeting, we consider a resolution regarding the streetlights and the BC Hydro stuff and take that to Silga. Like, I think we maybe keep that in the back of our mind as well, potentially, or get staff to add it on to the agenda next meeting, potentially. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but.
Yeah, we do have 2 more council meetings before the deadline in one committee of the whole, so we could have a discussion at a committee of the whole perhaps. I know there's already 2 strategic objectives that have been drafted that would have to go through Silga and UBCM. So we've got some discussion topics that it may get the juices flowing next Tuesday as well. But we can certainly bring that topic to the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Discussion? So Councillor Weed, you're okay with what you hear?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, and staff will be looking forward in that. Then we'll move on to item 18.4, Silga call for nominations for Silga board members. Before you get in, is it just a 1-year term?
It is just a 1-year term. We're trying to work out something where possibly we could go 2 years, but yes, every year you have to run for the board. Or you might want to, people retire, go off the president, vice president, so on and so forth. And it's been such a strange year. I think if I have council's support, I would like to try to get back on the board, because I don't feel like I've accomplished very much. Like, we had our secretary came down with COVID, so we missed a couple of meetings, and it's just been, there's been a lot of virtual stuff, but nothing really in person where you get down to the meat of things. And I also knew that last time Councillor Howe was interested, and then with everything going on, kind of backed off. So I wasn't sure if anybody else on council wanted to run, and I just thought I'd put that out there, that the deadline for that is February 28th. So possibly it could also come up at a future council meeting.
Any comments from council? Discussion? We're okay with that? Oh yeah, Councillor Leach.
Sorry, just while we're on the topic again, since Councillor Wiebe clearly wishes to continue, can we add her nomination on to one of the next agendas before the deadline?
Yep, you took the words out of my mouth. Well done. Any comments from the rest of you? So then we're okay with, as long we have a commitment that this will be coming to us in a future meeting. So therefore, good. Therefore, what I require is a resolution from council that letter to BCUC rehab BC Hydro street lighting rates and the Silga Community Excellence Awards 2021, and the Silga calls for resolution, and the Silga calls for nomination for Silga board members be accepted, be the correspondence as accepted. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Leach. No further discussion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, council.
We have questions from.
Sorry? Did somebody say something?
I believe Councillor Wiebe forgot to mute her microphone. It's been rectified.
Oh, yeah. Councillor Hoffel, yes.
Can I just ask Councillor Wiebe again, I'm sorry, what that date was? I know that we closed that and everything, but I just wanted to know the date that she said that we needed it in by the 26th of
26th of February for resolutions, 28th of February for nominations.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Okay, we'll move item 19.1. The meeting is now open to questions from the media and public. Did you receive any meetings, Mr. Taylor? Any questions, Mr. Taylor?
No, Mr. Mayor, none was submitted. I will mention at this point that starting on the February 1st meeting, we're going to attempt to open up this meeting to the public. It's going to, we're going to draft a list of rules for behavior and whatnot to make sure no one just unmutes their microphones or turns on their cameras at the time. So it will be a trial run, but if it goes well, we will attempt to keep these open to the public so that they can actually participate.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest don't be too educational in terms of the processes and procedures. Remember, we just said our OCP is well aware that our community people are very caring and cautious and kind. Right?
Yes,
and we do look for input from our community members. I really hope it works. As much as I struggle with Zoom and Team and the like, at least we're getting some of the business done, and at least we're conveying some of the good works that staff and the council are doing for the community through this time period. Good. So I'm looking for someone to move that the January 18th, 2021 regular council meeting be adjourned. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second, Councillor Howe. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council. Thank you for your patience. Well done. Have a good evening. And we'll see you on Wednesday.